Сатоши Накамото. Кто он? Dorian Nakamoto.
But the main reason I'm here is to clear my name that I have nothing to do with Bitcoin, nothing to do with developing. I was just an engineer doing something else.
Okay.
And if you look at the time span, 2001, when it was supposed to be developed, I wasn't there. I was working for the government through a contracting company. That's not me.
Okay.
I never communicated with Bitcoins.
Okay.
Leah wrote all this?
Yeah.
2010 to 2000. I was at home.
Okay.
I wasn't working for anybody.
Okay.
I just believe that somebody put that fictitious name in there.
Mm-hmm.
Satoshi Nakamoto and Bitcoin, or Bitcoin.
Do you think?
Ник Szabo.
So it comes, there are several threads of that. First of all, I studied computer science. I was a computer science major, so I had a good understanding of things like cryptography and Byzantine agreement and so forth, which are fairly recent in the historical terms I've just been talking about, innovations for doing computer security better in a more trust minimized way. That combined with my study of the origins and history of money led me to the idea of trust minimization, and that you want to apply computer science to create a better form. Because the money is a technology. It's a technology that has many objective characteristics, many design functions that make it very improbably like other things. Some people like to say it's arbitrary, random, social thing. It's certainly not. If you look at how primitive money worked, how gold worked and stuff, it has very specific characteristics that make it good money. And so I wanted to take those and implement those in cyberspace. And so the answer at that time was something, I guess, most similar to what, in security terms, of what Stellar and Ripple are now. And but combined with a Merkle tree to hold a transaction history. And so that was Bitgold. And Satoshi came along and improved a number of aspects of it, made it even more trust minimized, and actually wrote software. So that brings us to where we are today.
Sergey Nazarov.
Let me ask you this question. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? There's quite a few people who suggest that person is you. So, is it you?
No.
Who do you think it could be?
I don't know who it is. I think if I had to guess, it's probably a group of people, some of which might not even be around anymore. Obviously I'm very grateful to, if this is a singular or a group of people, for kicking off this entire industry and making this amazing change in the world that, I have the privilege and luxury of being part of in some small way in the work that I do. I think also this kind of focus on who is Satoshi or who isn't Satoshi shouldn't, in my opinion, matter so much, because regardless of who it is, that, in my opinion, should have no substantial, significant effect or bearing on the functioning or the value or the use or the security of the Bitcoin system, right? So I think whoever it is, they're probably better off not making that public. And I think beyond that, whoever it turned out to be shouldn't matter, because it has nothing to do with how the system is made useful or secure or anything else. And so I think that's the that's the point of view that I have.
Now, if you were Satoshi Nakamoto, would you tell me? Because you said they shouldn't, whoever Satoshi is, he should keep that private. So would you tell it to me or no?
We're in some kind of weird like thought experiment here. If I was this guy, let me think about this, which I'm not, by the way. I am not this person.
But if you were, would you say it?
I think probably not. I don't see I think that it would cause a lot of distraction and a lot of weird stuff. And so realistically, I don't think it would help anybody or even the person who discloses it. But just to be clear, I am not. And whoever it is, I think they haven't said anything because they don't want the attention and they don't want the distraction and they don't want all the problems from this. And that makes sense to me conceptually.
Wright.
My name is Craig Wright, and I'm about to demonstrate a signing of a message with the public key that is associated with the first transaction ever done on Bitcoin.
And who does the world think did that first transaction? What's the name associated with that first transaction?
The monkeyer is Satoshi Nakamoto.
So you're going to show me that Satoshi Nakamoto is you?
Yes. Some people will believe, some people won't. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care.
But you can say, hand on heart to me, I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
Dave Kleiman.
Dave Kleiman has more than 15 years' experience in information security management. He even developed a security program for Windows operating system, and he joins us from Miami. Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, how you doing, Vince?
Let's start with what happened in this case. It seems like he did it, and I think the quote yesterday from the defense was, he was able to figure out her passwords and figure out her security things. It took less time than the prosecutor's opening statement. Is this a problem across the board, that it's just too easy, if you really want to get into someone's personal email account?
Well, what happens is on a system like Yahoo, which her email was, you have what's called a password reset, where they ask you common questions. What's your favorite color? What high school did you go to? What's your birth date? And people tend to do that. As a matter of fact, the same exact things happened to Salma Hayek. She had the same thing happen to her just a few years ago, where someone put in her birth date and guessed her favorite character, which was one of her own characters that she portrayed in a movie, and got into her account the exact same way. It's pretty simple. It's something that Yahoo probably might want to look at, and people themselves can take advantage or do something better by not using their real information there. Make up your own information. Make up something that's not posted, where people can find it, like your birthday, the college you went to, things like that.
Absolutely. Now, how difficult is it to track down who is doing this? Like, let's say and will you know if you've been hacked into?
As far as would you know? Well, usually what happens when people get into users' accounts is they either use their account for sending out spam or phishing things, and your friends will start getting emails from you, strange emails from you, and that happens quite commonly. As far as, is it easy to track down? Well, most of these systems track IP addresses, who connected what time, and those kind of things, and keep that information, for a certain period of time, up to a year. So it's very easy for investigators, law enforcement investigators.
Okay, you say law enforcement, but what if I'm at home and I think someone hacked into my account, and I don't necessarily want to go to law enforcement about it, but I want to find out who's hacking into my account? Can some regular person like me figure that out?
No, you would have to, if you had an attorney and you could file what's called the John Doe subpoena, and they could file it so that they could go in and get the information and pull up who attached to the account, the IP addresses, etc.
Hal Finney.
We will next hear from Hal Finney.
I want to prove to you that I know a message that hashes to a given hash value using the SHA-1 hash. I don't want to reveal anything about the message to you. It's zero knowledge proof, and I've written a program to do this, which I will tell you about. Here's the basic model that we have. Peggy the prover knows the message, and we have Victor the verifier that she's going to make this proof to. So she sends a commitment to the message over to Victor, which locks her into the message without revealing any information to Victor about it. Now what we're going to do is she's going to go and calculate the SHA-1 hash on this message, and Victor is going to start with the message commitment, and he's going to calculate simultaneously with her a commitment to the SHA-1 hash. She's going to help him do this as they perform the calculation together, but of course again without revealing any information about the message. At the end, she has the hash, Victor has the commitment to the hash, and she'll open the commitment. He can verify that it matches what he calculated, and that's how he'll know that this was the message that she knows the message that hashes to this value. The motivation for doing this, lots of the presentations that we hear about will say this particular protocol could of course be done with general purpose zero knowledge and perhaps multi-party computations, but those techniques are inefficient or they're impractical. So I wanted to find out just how inefficient, just how impractical they really are. I picked SHA because obviously there's not going to be any kind of an elegant zero knowledge proof of a SHA hash, because the whole algorithm is designed to be complex and irreversible. So it's really meant as a benchmark to see what the state of the art is for zero knowledge proof systems that can handle general and irregular problems like this.
Together and really enjoy. About that time, I got started on what would turn to be the next phase of my career, which is a rather technical field called cryptography, which deals with basically scrambling data. And the main commercial application is to protect sensitive data on the internet from being stolen. So it's actually a very mathematical field and quite interesting, even as a theoretical from the theoretical perspective, independent of its practical applications. But it's a field that really fascinates me for that reason. As I was describing earlier, the thing I always love is when there's an intellectual challenge that when you master it gives you practical abilities. And cryptography is an ideal field for that because the intellectual challenge is very great, but the practical applications are very useful and, in my opinion, quite amazing and counterintuitive. So as I started to learn about it, I was really interested. And I got involved with the guy who was developing a cryptographic software program for the internet. I started working with him. He lived in another state, but I would work on his program at night. He had created kind of a first version, but he needed a lot of improvements. And for some reason, he didn't want to do the improvements. He was trying to get other people to do them. And so I became that person. So after a couple of years of the software being continually developed and used, he decided to start a company to commercialize it and orient it towards the business market. So he hired me. At first he wanted me to move up to the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. That was where the headquarters were going to be. But I didn't want to leave Santa Barbara. The kids were in school, Fran was working, we really loved living here. So he finally agreed that I could work from home, live at home, work, do what they call telecommuting, and just travel up to there a few times a year. And that was in 1996, and I basically worked there ever since. It's been great. I can live at home. I work on cryptography, which is this field that I love, and I don't have to do too much travel. I have a lot of connections and respect within the field, and it's just been an ideal area for me. I've been really, really happy and satisfied working in that all these years.
So before we talk about the fundamental ideas behind Ethereum and cryptocurrency, perhaps it'd be nice to talk about the origin story of Bitcoin and the mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto. You gave a talk that started with sort of asking the question, what did Satoshi Nakamoto actually invent? Maybe you could say, who is Satoshi Nakamoto and what did he invent?
Sure. So Satoshi Nakamoto is the name by which we know the person who originally came up with Bitcoin. So the reason why I say the name by which we know is that this is a anonymous fellow who has shown himself to us only over the internet, just by first publishing the white paper for Bitcoin, then releasing the original source code for Bitcoin, and then talking to the very early Bitcoin community on Bitcoin forums, and if interacting with them and helping the project along for a couple of years. And then at some point in late 2010 to early 2011, he disappeared. So Bitcoin is a fairly unique project in how it has this kind of mythical, kind of quasi-godlike founder who just kind of popped in, did the thing, and kind of disappeared, and we've somehow just never heard from him again.
So in 2008, so the white paper was the first, do you know if the white paper was the first time the name will actually appear, Satoshi Nakamoto?
I believe so.
So how is it possible that the creator of such a impactful project remains anonymous?
That's a tough question, and
there's no similarity to it in history of technology as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So one possibility is that it's Hal Finney, because Hal Finney was kind of also active in the Bitcoin community, and as Hal Finney in those two beginning years, and Hal.
Who is Hal Finney? Maybe you could say.
He's one of the people in the end of early cypherpunk community. He was
so he's a computer scientist. Just
computer scientists, cryptographers, people interested in like technology, internet freedom, like those kinds of topics.
Was it correct that I read that he seemed to have been involved in either the earliest or the first transaction of Bitcoin?
Yes. The first transaction of Bitcoin was between Satoshi and Hal Finney.
Do you think he knew who Satoshi was? If
he wasn't Satoshi, probably no.
How?
Gavin Andresen.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I wasn't asked why I'm convinced Craig is Satoshi. I posted on Reddit. He signed in my presence using the private key from block number 1, the very first mined Bitcoin block, on a computer that I'm convinced had not been tampered with, on software I'm convinced that had not been tampered with, a message of my choosing. And so that kind of sealed the deal for me, convincing me that he does have that private key. My interactions with him feel like this is the inventor of Bitcoin. I remind everybody he is human. I'm sure he makes mistakes like we all do. I'm sure he's made some mistakes in the past. And he wants his privacy. So I'm going to draw a line. If you ask me questions about this, I draw the line at, I will explain why I'm convinced. I will not go into like personal details of the discussion that I had with him.
Just to still a bit of controversy for fun, I'll explain why I think he's probably not Satoshi.
It's 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I mean, first of all, very simple signaling theory. He had the opportunity to take 2 different paths of proving that he's him. One path would have been to make that exact kind of proof, make a signature from the first Bitcoin block, put the signature out in public, make a very simple 10-line blog post that anyone, including, people, including, cryptographers like Dan Bonet and Ben Kaminsky and so forth can verify that it's him, and just post that out there and let the cryptographic community do it. Instead, he's taken this path where he's wrote this big long blog post with 200 lines. It's so confusing that even Dan Kaminsky said it's too confusing, and tried to only show that signature to a few select people, and we're supposed to trust them. So, in general, signaling theory says if you have a good way of proving something and a noisy way of proving something, and you choose the noisy way, then that means chances are that means it's because you couldn't do the good way in the first place.
Okay. So we'll be around for questions. Just thank you very much for everyone. Just put your hands together. Thank the panelists.
Bram Cohen.
My name is Bram Cohen. I live in the San Francisco area, and I am working on a project called Chia.
Tell us more about Chia and your involvement with blockchain.
Chia is a project to try and make a better Bitcoin based on having a consensus algorithm that is less wasteful, more secure, and more distributed, and making a smart transaction system that's better at value transfer and security kind of applications.
Tell us more about what you think about blockchain and the current environment that we have right now.
There's a lot of scams and bullshit in the cryptocurrency space currently. I am trying to make real technology, but at the moment, hype is getting the attention rather than technology getting the attention.
What kind of things do you think need to take place before the technology fueling blockchain can really start, taking hold in, the marketplace and being more effective than it currently might be?
Right now, the technology to do a lot of the things people want to do with cryptocurrencies isn't really there. There is some actual usage of Bitcoin currently for real stuff, mostly around international transfers. To do better at that, there needs to be a system which allows those things to be done quicker, with greater scaling, and with greater security. And so I am working on the level 1 solution to allow those layer 2 things to be built in the future. And then we'll work on building the ecosystem of those things being made around it.
Okay. So given everything that's currently taking place in, the blockchain and Bitcoin world, what are some of your predictions for the direction that this technology and the actual use cases are going?
It's very hard to make predictions, particularly about the future.